Does Von Miller want to be a Bronco? He is in Mexico right now at some golf tournament fundraiser, and he hopped on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams, who was talking to him about the tournament, asking who he's on the team with, and he goes, just Brandon McManus, Brett Rippon, Cortland Sutton, all former Broncos, one a current Bronco, and Kay Adams is like, it's a lot of Broncos. Do you think you want to be an actual Bronco again? And Miller gave a pretty political answer about how he's enjoying kind of the free agency period at the moment of looking around, seeing what his options are, kind of being a true free agent, right? He did not come out and explicitly say, yes, I would love to be a Bronco. But he did have, and you got to watch the video for yourself. I love to play it, but copyright laws would get really mad at me. The tone and the transcript don't do it justice. He kind of had that smirk and smile of someone who would like to come back to where he started his career to end it. Here's the problem. I don't think the interest is mutual. I could definitely see Von Miller wanting to come back to the Broncos. I partially wonder if that Halloween party, just sits in the back of his head, but that was so tabloidy, and that was a few years ago now, and maybe it's water under the bridge, but I don't get the sense that the Broncos are looking to bring him back. They kind of kicked the tires on him when he was a free agent before he signed with the Rams. They went for Randy Gregory, right? That was that offseason. That obviously didn't work out well, but it's a brand new, first off, it's more or less brand new ownership. It is brand new ownership since he left. So it's not like there's an owner who was there with him for all of his time. It's like, I loved watching 58 play. I don't care what it costs. Bring him back. Because that happens. Owners like to meddle, but that's not the case here. There's a new head coach in Sean Payton. He didn't really have much of a relationship with George Payton. They didn't overlap a ton, right? Honestly, just a few months. So he doesn't have a lot of really strong ties to the decision makers at Mile High. So from a nostalgia effect, why would they really want to bring him back? Sure, they win some brownie points in the fan base, but are they in a spot where they need to earn brownie points? No, they're coming off a playoff appearance. People aren't at the gates like it's the movie Draft Day and they're all mad at the Seahawks GM and pancake-eating motherfucker. Like, that's not really what's going on in Denver after a great season. So if there's lack of ties and there's not this urge to win back the fan base, from a football perspective, I can't make much sense as to why Denver would want to bring back Von Miller, right? You look at what he's done the last few years. 6 sacks a year ago, huge bounce back year after a disastrous 2023 season when he was just getting some cardio in on Sundays. 3 tackles. He was non-existent. And I'm struggling to look at the football player that is now Von Miller and think, yeah, there's room for him on this roster, right? Let's demote Jonah Ellis, who had the most sacks by a player under 23 years old, I think, in recent NFL history. There's some really cool stat around that. I think it's since Cam Jordan. I don't remember exactly. But you've got Bonitto, Cooper, Tillman. He went to a college that not even Sean Payton probably heard of. I think it's Indiana University in Pennsylvania, IUPUI, something like that. And he comes over from spring football and puts together 5 sacks. Like, you've got a good rotation at outside linebacker. Where are you finding snaps or a role for Miller? You could argue from a leadership perspective, and I won't argue against that. I don't know what Von is like in the locker room because I haven't been in the locker room with Von Miller. And if Denver feels like he's such a great influence that he's worth a spot on the 53-man roster, even if he gets 8 to 10 snaps a game, all right, I won't push back on that if they feel like he's that valuable of a leader. Does Sean, George, or Walton Penner know about his leadership skills? They never really overlapped with him. Like George Payton for a little bit, but he traded him. He didn't look at him as someone that was untouchable. I don't think the interest is mutual. So I won't slam the door on it, but I'll be surprised, to put it lightly. Now, the pinned comment on today's show. Do you want Von Miller to return? I guess no. Like, yes, it'd be really cool. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think Von coming back actually improves this football team. I think it becomes a little bit of like a this sounds mean, but like a Make-A-Wish thing, where it's just like, oh, we want to bring him back because it's Von Miller. Do you have a role for him on defense? No. He's not going to probably play, actually. Well, then let's get someone that could actually contribute to the team. Is the 53rd guy in the roster really going to make or break a season? Probably not. But I'd rather have some good depth and some up-and-coming players elsewhere than just, let's have Von Miller for the sake of having Von Miller. If you want him to retire a Bronco, sign a one-day contract. So I'm going to go out on, I wouldn't even say a limb here, maybe just like one toe in like warm water. I don't even think Von is signed by NFL Week 1. I think the way he has played the past 2 seasons, his age, and some of the recent injuries and the missed time and whatnot, teams are just going to decide, yeah, we're not interested at this moment. But if we have some injuries pop up, it's kind of like when you apply for a job and they tell you no, but they go, but you know what? If another position opens up, we're going to keep your resume on file. Like, yeah, that's not happening. I don't think that Von's going to get a lot of phone calls right now, and he might be someone that signs mid-season for a contending team that has an injury. It's like, well, we don't really think he can play 17 games, but we don't need him for 17 games. We just need him for 8 games in a postseason run. And he was awesome for the Rams in the playoffs. Now, before we move on to the other part of today's episode, the draft is right around the corner. I mean, it's less than a month away. So we're going to be breaking down some draft targets, some mock drafts, rumors, all that good stuff. But make sure to subscribe so you do not miss out on any of your favorite Broncos draft coverage. We're 18 away from not quite a milestone, but just like, what's like the term? Like the next base camp or next camp when you're climbing up Everest. Like we're just chipping our way up to the big 4-0 in subscribers. So I do need your help with that. Scroll on down and click that subscribe button. Now, a topic that I saw floating around Broncos Twitter today came from the guys over at DNVR who asked a nice thought-provoking question. How would you grade George Paton's tenure as the Broncos GM? So I thought we could discuss it on today's episode. Look at it first from as close as we can to a statistical standpoint, even though all of this is subjective, right? There's nothing objective about grading a GM. He did not rush for 1,000 yards or anything like that. But I will subjectively say, here are some of George Paton's better moves. And maybe I'm missing one or two, but as a GM, you always grade them first and foremost, usually through the draft, and then free agency and trades. So he had some great draft picks. He's still, Pat Surtain, Quinn Meinerz, Nik Bonitto, Jonathon Cooper. I'm looking at extension, incoming extension. 3 out of 4 picks in the last couple of years that all warranted longer time in Denver. Mike McGlinchey was given a huge contract, and maybe he wasn't quite worth every penny of that, but he has been a fine addition to this offensive line that was looking for some stability at right tackle for almost a decade. Zach Allen and DJ Jones, I thought, were really good additions to the defensive line, especially Allen. Now, I did put acquiring Sean Payton down there. No, George Paton probably did not drive the bus on getting Sean Payton. But I do think Sean Payton picked the Broncos in part because he felt like George was someone he could work with well. Why do I think that? Because George is still employed. If Sean Payton wanted this job and said, fire him or you don't get me, they'd probably fire George Paton. Because at the time, that would not have been an unpopular decision. Right? He had just traded for Russell Wilson, and Nathaniel Hackett was his head coach hiree. Flop, and I don't know how, but a bigger flop. So, George definitely had some role in Sean ending up in Denver. Maybe not a huge role, but I will give him some level of credit. But he's had some misses. Traded for Russell Wilson, which I'm not going to harp on the guy for because at the time, how many people thought that was a bad move? It was praised. It was celebrated. I think there were statue conversations. Giving him the extension was probably the bigger crime. Because he still had, I think, 2 years left on that contract. And they gave him an extension before he played a snap. And that was the mistake. Well, both were mistakes. That was probably the bigger mistake that was more avoidable. Then hiring the Hackett was an absolute failure. I would love to be a fly on the wall for some of these head coach interviews because I think we often think of the interviews as, so you were the offensive coordinator for the Packers. They averaged 25 points. They ranked 7th in scoring. You're very good at your job. We'll hire you now. A lot of these interviews are just like, who are you as a person? Like, let us get to know you. Is this someone we think can lead our team and take us to the promised land. And that was just a horrible, horrible evaluation because Hackett seemed like he was way in over his head. So overall, my grade for Payton, I'll give him a B-. Probably a little bit on the generous side because, well, he's had some great draft picks. Surtain, Meinerz, Bonitto, Cooper. Making the trade and extension and the hiring of Hackett, those have to outweigh a couple of draft picks. Those are just more important to a team, right? Let me ask you this. Would you rather have Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett be an incredible duo or have Surtain, Meinerz, Bonitto, and Cooper be as good as they are? I think teams would rather have the head coach GM partnership be exquisite. That's how much more valuable it is than a good corner, lineman, and 2 edge rushers. So I'm going to put him at a B-, and that's, I think, being a bit generous because he's had plenty of hits, but I think it's clear that he has done a better job with Sean Payton there and the two of them working more in tandem because a lot of these recent transactions, it's hard to pinpoint like Talanoa Hufanga. Is that a Sean Payton signing or a George Payton signing? You know what I mean? I'm sure there's a combination of the two, but I think with Payton's arrival, Sean, done a very good job of building up the roster. And while these draft picks look good by George, I think a lot of work was done by Sean to develop those players. Now, before we sign off, 2 quick things. One, as always, go check out chatsports.com/DEN hat. This winter hat is 70% off. They have a whole bunch of other Broncos gear on clearance as well. Shirts, polos, jerseys. So go to chatsports.com/DEN hat. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. Also, let's name a random blank. Let's name a random Broncos head coach. If you don't know, at the end of the videos, we do name a random something just to kind of keep it light during the offseason, and we'll see if you and I say the same thing. So I've got mine. I'm going to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wade Phillips. Forgotten Broncos head coach back in the 90s, but I'll go with Wade Phillips. Let me know who you said down in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, give us a like, comment, subscribe, share, all the cliches, and I'll see everyone later.